Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wealth Motivation with Mark Hill, author of The Secret to Prosperity. Today, we're going to talk about investing in Coke versus investing in Pepsi. Now, these are the two of the greatest companies in the world. Their brands are recognized all over the world, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Two of the best companies in the world. Talking about cash cows. The money just keeps rolling in. They basically have a duopoly, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It's kind of like Boeing and Airbus or MasterCard and Visa. They, those two companies pretty much control their respective sectors. And in the beverage business, it's all about Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Now, even when they have competition, these two companies are so great that they just buy out the competition. So it's hard to even compete with Coca-Cola and Pepsi because once you start getting close up on their heels, being a little competitive with them, they'll just offer you money that you can't refuse and they'll buy you out. So they almost practically don't have any competition. Now, as you can see, Coca-Cola is selling at about $48 a share. They're both dividend aristocrats, which means they've been increasing their dividend payments every year for investors. Let's look at Coke. 56 years of dividend growth. 3.2% yield as of today. 75% payout ratio. Let's compare that to Pepsi. Pepsi has 46 years of dividend growth. 3.3% dividend yield today. Basically, these two companies are identical twins in almost everything they do. And I'll show you the biggest difference a little bit later. But almost identical yield. You look at the dividend increases. Now they've both been increasing dividends for decades. But the one thing where Pepsi has a slight advantage is as of lately, they've been increasing their dividend a little bit faster, a little bit stronger increase in the payment to investors. As you can see in according to dividend.com, 11.2% increase in the dividend payment in 2018, around 8.5% over the last 3 years. The dividend is growing a little bit faster because if you go to Coke, you can see that they increased their dividend a little bit slower, 5.4% versus 11% with Coke. With Pepsi. So Pepsi has increased their dividend at almost twice the rate of Coke. That's just that year or the last, So, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen in the future. But that's one thing to consider when considering investing in both of these companies. But both of the dividends are very, very reliable. Great source of passive income. And both of the stocks, the appreciation has been about the same. I was reading an article. If you had bought, if you had put $1,000 10 years ago in Coke and in Pepsi, which one would have appreciated the most? And they both were about even. You would have made about the same amount of money in both companies. You would have a little bit more than doubled your money. I believe it was $1,000 10 years ago would have been $2,600 10 years later. So if you would have put 100,000 in Coke last year or Pepsi, you would have about 260,000. Or if you put $1,000,000 in Coke or Pepsi 10 years ago, you have about $2.6 million. So the appreciation is about the same. Let's look at the products. Oh, and also before I go to products, when you look at the dividend yield, don't be fooled by the current dividend yield. Okay, like with Pepsi, it says around 3% dividend yield. That's just today. But over time, and you may think, what, 3% is not a lot. Yeah, it's not. Well, it's better than any bank would give you right now. You get, or a CD, you get about 0.5% interest off a CD or a checking account or savings in a bank. So it's already more than triple what a bank would give you. But the thing is, how the wealth is built in the future is how the dividend grows from your cost basis. So, just an example, I just like to use a even number. Let's say $100,000. With 3%, you'll get about $3,300 a year off of that. 3%. But the longer you hold it, the higher that yield becomes. And the way you calculate the yield is you take the annualized payout, currently 3.7. Now let's go back in time. Let's say in 2009, you invested that same 100,000 or any amount, and you bought in around $35 a share. And you just held it, patient, long-term wealth building investor. 10 years later, not only would you almost triple your appreciation, your lump sum of money would almost triple, but the dividend payment would be, let's see, 3.7 divided by $35 a share back in 2009. You would have a 10% yield. So let's say you had 100,000 back in 2009. Not only would it have tripled to around 300,000, you would also be making 10% off of that 100,000. So you'd be getting about $10,000 a year just in dividend payment. See, that's the magic of the yield. So whatever the current yield is now, like we said, 3.3%. you can pretty much bet that your yield will be 10% 10 years from now. It'll double or triple. And at the rate that Pepsi's raising their dividend every year, it'll probably triple or quadruple. So, so you could get about 10 to 12% in 10 years. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's the magic of the dividend increases, the future yield. So that's just something to remember. Now, let's look at the product lineup. Like I said, one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Um, I mean, I've been to Asia. I've been all around, Latin America. Anywhere I go in the world, I see Coca-Cola and Pepsi products. I mean, these brands are worldwide, and I've read an article talking about they're still people think these are boring, slow-growing companies, but as the population of the world continues to grow, these companies Coke and Pepsi have a lot of growth potential, especially in Africa. Say the population in Africa is it's going to boom. It's going to skyrocket. It's going to be 4 times larger population in Africa. Let's say 40, 50 years from now. Do your research on the population boom in Africa. It's growing. The economy is growing. Africa, I mean, everything's booming in Africa. That's their next place of exponential growth. That's why China and the United States, they're all fighting for economic power in Africa because that's where the growth is. So these aren't just slow growing companies, and these brands are all over the world. Let's look at the Coke products. You got the sparkling, the pop, the water. Then you got the water products. I mean, they have products for all people. Even for if you're health conscious, they got the water products here. Um, they got the energy drinks, Monster. Like I said, they buy out the competition. Monster was giving them a competition. Uh, Maybe 5 to 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly. But they bought out like half of Monster beverage because Monster was on fire during the big energy drink craze. And they got, 3 other energy drinks. Then they got the fruit juices. We all seen the Minute Maid and the Latin. These are popular in Latin America. Bali, believe you pronounce it like, is it Bali? Bali. But I see that brand a lot in Latin America. Um, Simply Orange. Uh, then you got the iced teas. You got the sports drinks, the Powerade. Uh, then you got the coffee-based beverages. I mean, they hit all sectors of the beverage market. How you look at Pepsi, Pepsi's brands. Now the thing that really stands out as a big advantage to me with Pepsi is they not only have the juice and the beverage and the pop, type of beverages, the iced tea, but they also have the snacks. They have the snack market on lockdown. I mean, you got the potato chips, the Frito Lays, the Fritos, the Doritos, the Tostitos, the Ruffles, the Cheetos, even dabble in oatmeal. They got the Quaker Oats. I mean, they're dominating the snack market. At any vending machine or any convenience store, people want a quick snack. you're usually buying a Pepsi product when you're buying a packaged snack. Then they have the Gatorade. I mean, Gatorade is just, that's a household name in the sports drink arena. And they have a partnership with Starbucks for their coffee-based drinks. They got the iced tea also. They got the Tropicana for the juice to compete with Coke's Minute Maid or Simply Orange. Uh, and if I had to, choose, I like Tropicana orange juice a little better than Simply Orange. Um, the Mountain Dews. I mean, they've got quality brands, but they got the snacks to balance out the beverage. So somebody wants a quick snack, even if they prefer Coke, they'll buy a Coca-Cola drink, and then they'll buy a Pepsi snack, like a Frito-Lay potato chip or some Doritos. So either way, somebody's gonna buy a Pepsi product, even if they don't want the Pepsi drink. So that's phenomenal. They got the water with Aquafina. So that's where I think Pepsi has a slight advantage. Also, but you can't go wrong with either one. I mean, I really like both of these stocks. Um, I really like both of these stocks. They're both recession proof. I mean, these two companies have been around for over 100 years. Probably like 120 years, something like that, in like the late 1800s. So these stocks have been around through all the Great Depression, World Wars, um, the, the many wars that have caused economic, turmoil or instability, all kind of recessions. People still want these products and have a high demand for. Everyone's gonna stay thirsty and need something to drink, no matter what. No matter what the economic situation is, in good times or bad times. That's what I like about the way these companies are recession proof, and they're gonna make money no matter what. And they have a duopoly. I was reading one article that said during the Super Bowl that 90% of people are gonna indulge in a Pepsi product no matter what. Like I said, you either, even if you like Coca-Cola, you still gonna get some chips and dip with some Tostitos and some chips and salsa. Um, but they're both great companies. So I would give the slight advantage. If I could only choose one, which I have, I would give the slight advantage to Pepsi. I think they're raising their dividend a lot faster at a higher rate than Coke. And I like that they have the snack business um, to balance out their brand, their portfolio of brands. Um, Coca-Cola just has the beverage. Pepsi has the beverages and the snacks. So that's my choice. I'm currently invested in Pepsi right now. And I might buy some Coca-Cola also later on down the road. But like I said, you can't go wrong with either one in my opinion. But if I had to choose one, I like Pepsi as an investment. Let me know what you think. Which products do you like the best? Are you a Coke person or a Pepsi person? And which would you invest in, Coke or Pepsi? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.